So that's the investigative side of things. What about the impact on politics of what happened over the weekend? Well, we're joined now live on Breakfast from Washington by the political consultant Frank Luntz. Good morning to you, Mr. Luntz. Thank you for joining us. Donald Trump, then, has already arrived in Milwaukee for the Republican National Convention, where he's expected to be made the official candidate for the party. Clearly, he is determined to press ahead.
No, not only is he determined, I would say the word defiant best describes what's happening right now. And the impact, which I know you're going to get to, is going to be significant, but in a way that viewers may not expect. I don't think that there will be a single person who's going to change their mind about who they're voting for because of this horrific action. The impact comes in participation, it comes in passion, in intensity. Every Trump supporter will become a Trump voter in November. The U.S. has had a noticeably lower turnout than most democracies. Not this time, or at least not with the Trump vote. And the Biden vote is much less energized, much less engaged. In fact, the Biden vote is almost disappointed with what's happening, and the Trump vote is energized with what's happening. That turnout differential can result in a 1 or 2% gain in Trump's margin. And so he's going to be a very, very tough candidate to beat on Election Day.
That's very interesting. I mean, you're a pollster. You study the mood of the American voters, the American public. What is it, do you think, about the way that Trump handled himself in those seconds caught on camera after the assassination attempt, about the imagery that we've seen over the last 36 hours, that will be so motivating for his base?
It's easy. It's a simple shot. It was the fist in the air with the American flag behind him and the blood over his face. That's going to be the iconic shot, not just for this election, but for elections to come. They were using that word defiant to describe President Biden and his interviews and his press conference that was held a few days ago, but it was defiance marked by quietness and by kind of a halting presentation. Here you've got the former president shot, bleeding, and still attempting to make a statement, attempting to tell his supporters, fight, fight. But I want to point out one thing that I hope you have the videotape for this, which is that after Trump had been put into the car, notice the crowds. Several of them are extending their middle finger towards the TV cameras. Several of them are screaming at the media. That there's a level of anger that is even higher now than it was 72 hours ago, that it is something that Americans have had to live with for the last few years, that thank God in the UK you've not experienced it. And that anger tells me that we still could have, which is why Joe Biden took to the airwaves tonight to speak to Americans. That anger still exists. It's still right at the surface. And we've got a very divided, polarized country as we move forward into this election cycle.
You mentioned Joe Biden's speech overnight. How he handles this, the mood and tone that he sets, also crucial for him in the election.
That is absolutely correct. But it's hard for him to have that same kind of energy and that same kind of passion that former President Trump has. And that differential is not significant in terms of voter preference, but it is absolutely significant in terms of voter passion and intensity. And that intensity, I say to you this morning, that differential used to be a divide, and now it's a chasm between the desire of the Trump voters to be heard versus the desire of the Biden voters to participate. And that's going to be the story going forward over this convention. An insistence that they be recognized and a desire to be heard on Election Day, more importantly.
Frank Luntz, thank you for speaking to us here on BBC Breakfast this morning. We appreciate you staying up late in Washington. Thank you very much for your time.
It's a privilege. Thank you.
OK.